Hello everybody, thank you so much for joining me today on the meditation channel. I am so grateful you're here. I am grateful that you're sharing this moment with me, and hopefully you get something awesome out of this video. Like I mentioned, I'm a meditation coach, but I've also been a group facilitator for drug and alcohol. So one of the things that I actually teach people is self-empowerment, self-healing, and self-development, really. So today, why not talk about shadow work? Now, for those of you who don't know what shadow work is, well, it can sound a little scary. Okay, it sounds very dark and sinister, but really, shadow work can actually be one of the most powerful healing tools that one can practice. It can also have negative effects if it's not done the correct way. So, as always, please gauge where you're at emotionally, but the tools that I'm going to give you today are completely safe, and they're really just self-awareness tools to help you realize when your shadow is coming to the surface. So what is shadow? The shadow aspects of us. Well, the shadow is the hidden subconscious aspects, basically the parts of us that we have suppressed, disowned, and denied in order to function, in order to survive in society. If you think about it this way, usually the shadow shows up often when we've had some kind of traumatic experience, oftentimes in childhood, and over time we have developed coping mechanisms. And so we put these parts of us hidden into a secret chamber, or like in the shadow, so we can't really see it. But the truth of the matter is that they're always there. I'll give you some examples. Let's just say that you were born to be an artist. You are a creative being. Your calling is to create music or paint or be an actor. And you grew up in a family where basically science and math and education was really the thing that was valued. And your family looked at the creative things as something as nothing to value. Maybe they even made fun of people who are like creative and frou-frou, and you kind of get what I'm going here. So our family is our survival. Our family is our everything. Our family is our world, especially when we're children. So children adapt really quickly to their environment in order to survive. So if this is something that you realize, if you weren't getting love and affection or attention from mom and dad for your drawing, but you were getting attention from mom and dad for your mathematical skills, what can end up happening is that you might adapt and develop basically a coping mechanism, which is, in order for me to get love and attention from mom and dad, I better study and not spend any time doing the thing that I really love. So the issue with shadow work is that we're suppressing parts of who we are. And oftentimes people think that shadow is just the negative things, but it's not. Shadow is also your gifts, and this is an example of that. I'll give you an example of a negative shadow aspect. Let's just say that anger is something that is not accepted in your family. You've been taught that as a woman, being angry is not acceptable. It's not ladylike. And once again, what do? You adapt. You suppress, disown, and deny the anger that lives in you. And you do everything you can to be perfect and sweet and kind. And so that's another way of describing how the shadow develops. So you suppress, disown, and deny any parts of you that are angry. Now, here's the issue with this. The anger is still there. The artist in you still lives. Now, you can think of many other examples, but I'm just giving you two simple examples. I can give you one more. I'm going to hopefully put an image of this psychologist who went on the School of Thought, and he talked about being gay. He knew that he was gay from a very young age, and when he was very little, he started playing with Barbies. Now, his family saw him playing with Barbies, and at that time, they saw being gay as a mental illness, as something that is not good, something wrong with you. So they took him to a therapist, and of course, he was trained his entire life to suppress, disown, and deny the fact that he was gay. Now, this is an example of how shadow can manifest in a negative way. What ended up happening for him was that he ended up getting married. He ended up having children. And of course, when you're not being your true self, when you're pretending or trying to be something that you're not, out of survival. That's not something that he did on purpose. At that point, he didn't even realize anymore that he was gay. Guess what happens? You fail. It's very difficult to be something that you're not. And number one, it takes a lot of energy and you're going against yourself. So there's going to be a lot of inner turmoil. You're constantly battling and fighting your true self, constantly pushing down these feelings, these urges. So what happens if you don't meet your needs consciously? You're going to end up meeting your needs subconsciously. And these things can develop in addiction. These things can develop in passive-aggressive behaviors, or they can even develop on the outside where you're attracting circumstances in your life that are reflecting of the things that you are suppressing, disowning, and denying. Let's give an example of somebody who is very angry and has suppressed, disowned, and denied their anger. They always end up in friendships or partnerships with people who are really angry. And I can say this for myself. I've seen this experience. My husband is somebody who is like that. He was taught that anger is not a good thing. And he attracted a very hot-blooded Italian, Brazilian partner who I do get fired up. So sometimes these things manifest on the outside, and often you got to remember the law of mirroring, right? So what's happening on the outside oftentimes is what's happening on the inside. But also the shadows are also manifesting on the outside. Okay, so now that we understand what shadow is, there are a few things that you can do to become aware of the shadow. Now, before we get into that, I want to just preface that to heal the shadow, we need to integrate. So another example, for instance, of like inner child work, right? It's always said that with inner child work, what you want to do is be able to go and nurture that inner child. You know, the inner child is stuck back in time. It's that part of you, that subconscious part of you that never really grew up. And so what we want to do is basically allow that part of us to feel safe, to grow up again so that it can integrate, so that it can catch up with us. And shadow is very similar. So we want to be aware of these parts of us that we dislike, that we've rejected, that we've disowned, that we might not even be aware of, that are a part of us, such as that psychologist, doctor, I can't remember if he was a therapist or whatever, but he had suppressed it to the point where he didn't even know who he was anymore by the age of 35. And then, of course, he rediscovered who he is, and he's very happy now. He's very successful. So this is another benefit of the shadow. When we deal with the shadow, that's why healing shadow wounds is so powerful. And especially when we're talking about the law of attraction community. This is something that I noticed that a lot of the law of attraction community has not made the connection, if you like. I'll give you an example. Let's just say that you want to manifest $1 million, okay? You want to manifest more money. It doesn't have to be $1 million. You just want to manifest more money. So you do all the affirmations, you do all the seminars, you do all the visualization. And here's the thing with the shadow. You can manifest that money. You can win the lottery, right? But then you're going to sabotage it. And so you're going to lose it. Or you're going to constantly be 3 steps forward and 4 steps back. So this is where the shadow shows up. The shadow is kind of like this cord, this weight on you that's pulling you back. So you're putting all this effort to move forward, to try to get to your goal, to try to get to where you want to, without realizing that you have this massive weight that is holding you back. And it's exhausting to play this game. So when it comes to money, if you can heal the shadow aspects of you that have been suppressed, disowned, and denied, in regards to your fear of being wealthy, in regards to your poverty mindset, when you heal and fix that, and you add the manifestation programming, such as doing the affirmations, going to seminars, learning, educating yourself, then this balances itself out and allows you to basically move forward with ease. This is another reason why shadow work is so important. Also, if you just do shadow work on its own, your life will change. Because healing happens in the subconscious mind. It does not really happen on the conscious level. The conscious level is like we're aware of the fact that something's wrong. We know something's not working out for us. But the subconscious is where all the issues are, and we have to dig so deep to resolve it, heal it, and integrate it. Shadow is suppress, disown, and deny, and integration is accept, love, and integrate, allow, become it, become one with it. And this can be very challenging for many people because it's also integrating parts of us that we really, really dislike. So this can be really tough, but when you accept, love, and integrate those parts of you, there's no longer an internal battle happening. There's no longer a weight holding you back. And so suddenly you lift all of this heaviness, you bring out clarity, you know exactly what's been the issue all this time, and energetically you change from the inside out. You're healing the subconscious. So when you do that, stuff is going to start happening on the outside. Okay, so today I really wanted to point out 3 key signs that your shadow is being triggered, that your shadow is coming to the surface. So once again, the shadow is always there, right? So the shadow work is really ultimately putting light onto that shadow so you can see it and do something about it. So there are 3 things that will tell you that the shadow is being active, is present, or is trying to get your attention, or is coming to the surface and it needs to be healed. Now, I use these 3 symbols to help people it's just an easy way for people to remember. Number 1 is a circle. Cyclical patterns. Number 2, it's a gun. Triggers, a weapon, goes off. And number 3, it's a mirror. So let me talk about the first one. Cyclical patterns, a circle. One sign of the shadow repeating itself or coming to the surface is when you experience something over and over and over again. Now, a lot of people feel like they're just cursed or the universe is trying to punish them, but that's not the case at all. This is because this lesson is constantly being presented to you because it needs your attention and it needs to be healed. Another example could be people who are always ended up in abusive relationships, or people who can't hold money. You make money and then you lose the money again. So another example could be people who end up in cults. They end up in these toxic environments, in these toxic groups. I actually know somebody who keeps ending up in this pattern. So these are signs of unhealed shadow. And this is why these experiences keep repeating themselves. Same issue, different partner, different place, different group. One of the things that I ask my clients a lot is like, ask yourself, what is a repetitive pattern that you've noticed in your life that you don't want anymore? That is something that is causing you basically feel victim to it because you feel like this is something that's happening to you. Now, here's the key to shadow. I'm all about self-empowerment. So now that you become aware of the shadow aspect, how can you heal this part of you? And so we'll get to that at the end. So let's get to the second one, which is the gun, the weapon. The reason why I say a gun, I know it's not the most pleasant image, but it's effective and you'll remember it. When you think about a gun, it's a weapon. It goes off. So when we're triggered, when an emotional activation happens within us, we go off. And oftentimes we have a reaction to something that most people may not have such a big reaction to, but we do. We have this overly reactive emotional experience on the inside that manifests on the outside. An example is when somebody has a panic attack. This is obviously suppressed, disowned, and denied aspects of their subconscious that have been lurking underneath, that have been building up, and then it takes one moment for something to happen and boom, they're off. They start having a panic attack. Or somebody who goes from 0 to 100 real quick, where they get really, really angry over something that is not even that big of a deal. So these are the things that you want to think about is like, what are some big emotional triggers? You can think of somebody who, let's just say, for instance, people who are very intolerant of certain groups of people. Okay, so let's just say that you come from a specific religious group who are not accepting of a certain community. And when they hear it, they get triggered. Or politics, that could have even been a thing here in the US. I mean, left and right, they trigger each other like crazy. And there's a lot of shadow in the community when it comes to this that's been built up over time. So remember, shadow doesn't just have to be individual. Shadow can also be built up in a collective. So women will have a shadow aspect, men will have a shadow aspect. So these are all telltale signs of a shadow that's coming to the surface and that needs healing. And finally, the third one is mirroring. This one's really interesting. A lot of people don't like this one and have a hard time putting it together. Mirroring is the type of thing when a certain type of personality or person triggers you. The trigger and the mirror kind of go together. And also the cyclical, they're all kind of connected. But let's just say I'm with a friend in a room and this person comes in and they are bragging about their achievements and their day and how happy they are and how they've done this, this, and that and how accomplished they are. And my friend is like, wow, that's awesome. Good for you, dude. And I'm like, who the hell does this person think they are? I am having a visceral emotional reaction to this individual. And whenever they show up, I don't like it. You can think about a celebrity that does that for you, or a type of personality, somebody who is wealthy. You know, somebody who's really, really wealthy and has lots of money. How do you feel about that? Do you get triggered by that? Do you have already a judgment, an opinion, or a repulsion about that? So this is a shadow. This is a reflection within you that you have suppressed, disowned, and denied. You have to remember that we're not just one personality. And in order to survive in a certain group, let's just say you grew up in a family who didn't value money and think anybody who is wealthy is just up themselves and they're arrogant and they're not very nice people. So you grow up with this mentality, maybe not even aware of it. So when you become older, you already have this presumption that when somebody's wealthy and well-dressed, they're like, ugh, can't stand them. Who the hell do they think they are? But that's because you suppress, disown, and deny those aspects within yourself. And so if you are healed in that department, if you are accepting of those aspects of you, like I said with my friend who was like, oh, good for you, that person doesn't have an issue with that mirroring, but I do. Now, not me personally, but you get what I'm saying. Okay, so these are the three things. Now, I really suggest that you begin to get to know these parts of you and start really paying attention. I would just suggest you get pen and paper and you put a circle. You maybe don't draw a gun, but just say gun. If you can draw a gun, good for you. And then you can write mirror. And you can just write down a list of things that you are aware of currently in your life that are cyclical patterns, that are triggers for you, and that are mirrors. And once you can pinpoint what these emotions are, try to pinpoint as well the origin of them. What are they trying to protect you from? And the integration is really quite simple, but not as simple as it sounds. So let's just say the cyclical pattern, let's just say that you are attracting a lot of abusive relationships. You can ask yourself, in what ways am I abusing myself? Or in what ways am I abusing others and I'm not seeing that within myself? I know it stings, but there is parts of us, and here's the problem with the subconscious, none of us are perfect. We do these things even on the microscopic. And if we can start seeing them and accepting them and forgiving ourselves for that, then we allow that shadow to slowly, slowly come closer. And the whole idea is eventually to completely and embrace and accept that part of us. And every time that shadow comes up, I will give you a mantra that you could possibly say to yourself that really helped me a lot. So I just placed my hand on my heart. I recognize it. I see it. If it helps, see it as an energy in your body and you can feel that tightness or that rejection. And just say, I accept all of you and I leave nothing behind. That's Kaya, my friend's dog. You tell him, Kaya, about that. She agrees. Same thing with the trigger. If you're in a situation where something triggers you and you're having a visceral emotional reaction, if you can catch that moment and just put your hand on your heart and say, I accept all of you and leave nothing behind, I promise you're going to calm down really quickly. And once again, a mirror. When you see a mirroring, a situation with somebody who comes in the room and it triggers you, brings up fear, brings up anger, brings up resentment, whatever it may be, what parts of me are like that person? How do I act like that? Or why am I afraid of those personality traits in myself? What does that mean if I was like that to me? Okay. So very simple video, but I hope this was helpful because it can be a truly transformational self-awareness exercise. And like I said, just write down the things that you are aware of. And I promise you, the more you go out through your day, you just think about the circle, the gun, and the mirror. And I promise you, things will pop up for you. And you're like, oh, I'm being triggered. Huh, that's a mirror. Oh, this is a cyclical pattern. So remember, when you heal the shadow, you cast a light upon the darkness. And by doing that, you bring those parts back home and you allow yourself to be whole again. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope to see you again soon on the channel. I'm just making random videos. I'm thinking about doing quite a few new things on the channel. Check out my library. There's a ton of meditations, and I'm pretty sure I've done quite a few shadow work meditations as well, so they can help you process something that you might be going through. All right, have a magical week.